Kid's got some marvelous hands.
The Cup's going to stay in Vegas. And for the first time, the Golden Knights are Stanley Cup champions.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Face Off on the IM6 Sports Network. I'm Taylor Ogata, along with Isaiah Leung. And Isaiah, we are well now into the second round, the conference semifinals of the 2024 Stanley Cup Playoffs. And what do you think of the action so far?
Well, Taylor, I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. It's been a while since we've done Face Off, man. So it's great to be on here and do the show again. You know, I know that I brought up the idea of doing the show because I was so excited that my Sharks got the #1 pick to select the phenom Macklin Celebrini. So I can't wait to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, I know we'll break down each and every Stanley Cup playoff game that's happened in the last couple of days, but so far I think it's been very exciting. It's definitely been more exciting than the NBA playoffs thus far. You know, every game has been very unexpected. You've had like different amazing play after different amazing play after different amazing play, and it's just been awesome. It's been so awesome to watch hockey in the playoffs. It's been tremendous, and I like the product that Gary Bettman has and the National Hockey League has put on thus far. My team's obviously not in it, but it's definitely fun to see all these teams in it, and it's something different. You know, you're in the NBA. Okay, the Celtics are probably going to be in the finals. You have another team that's in the West, maybe Denver or the Mavericks, that are going to be in the finals. But in hockey, you don't know who's going to be in it. Like, I honestly have no clue, Taylor, who's going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals. So, can't wait to talk about it. And hey, I watched a lot of great games yesterday, starting with the Canucks and the Oilers, and can't wait to talk about that one as well.
Yeah, for sure, Isaiah. And in the meantime, so yeah, you can always expect the unexpected in hockey because it's a sport unlike any other. So on that note, let's dive right in, and we start with that Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers series, Game 3 yesterday from Edmonton, and it was a feisty one and not to mention, it got so chippy that there were even some supplemental discipline dished out, starting with Nikita Zadorov getting a $5,000 fine for a cross-check on Oilers captain Connor McDavid, and a suspension as well for Carson Soucy of the Canucks defenseman for another cross-check on Connor McDavid. Do you think this was appropriate in terms of discipline for those two players?
Yeah, I definitely do think it was because I think that I watched that game and it was a very feisty game. Kudos to the Oilers. They made it close. You know, they scored a goal, I think, with like 3 minutes to go in the game. And then the Canucks, they barely missed an empty netter. When the goalie was pulled by the Oilers, he was pulled and they barely missed it. I mean, that thing hit the pole of the goal and it almost went in. And then the Oilers, they nearly scored a game-winning goal. They almost scored the game-winning goal at the buzzer, or game-tying goal at the buzzer. They barely missed that one as well. And I saw that play where Connor McDavid got cross-checked, and that was a very, very dangerous and flagrant play. I mean, Connor McDavid could have broken his back with that play. Like, that was so egregious. It reminded me of when Andrew Bynum elbowed JJ Barea in the shoulder as JJ Barea was coming in for a layup. It was that egregious and it was that flagrant. I think that he should have gotten Janikowski should have gotten a suspension for that. I think for McDavid. He's one of the bright stars in the NHL, and for him to almost break his back and have a career-ending injury because of that, because of just an egregious a play where the guy just gets pissed off because they lost the game. I mean, it's totally unacceptable, and I think they should have done more. I think they should have fined him a lot of more money, and I think they should have definitely suspended him for like at least 5 to 7 games, because you could have caused McDavid to be not just out for the year, but you could have caused him to potentially never play hockey again, because you blindsided him by hitting him in the back, and the way that he hit him, it was just such a hard hit. So I don't think it was an appropriate penalty, Taylor. I think he should have been penalized even more, because you could have deeply hurt Connor McDavid.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely a really dangerous play, but unfortunately, Zadorov was fined $5,000, but that's the maximum amount allowable they can fine under the collective bargaining agreement between the NHL and the Players Association. But as far as Carson Soucy, there was the cross check at the end too, and he's been suspended for 1 game. But I don't know. It could have been more, but at the same time, it's also it's only 1 game, and he's lucky he didn't get more on that note, because cross-checking, as you know, it's where you push him with your stick, like diagonally, and that can really hurt badly.
Yeah, I agree. I've played hockey before in my life, and I've been cross-checked once when I was a little kid. And let me tell you, when I was a little kid and I was playing with little kids, that really hurt. So, I just, when you're playing as an adult, you're playing with even more force, you're playing with even more power. It just hurts even more. So, definitely, I would say it's a very, very dangerous play. I mean, it's common in hockey, but it's still dangerous, especially when you're doing it via the blind side. So I don't. I mean, I get why they did it. I get why you're frustrated. I get why they penalized him that much. I just think that it wasn't. I think he should have been penalized a little bit more, just because of how egregious that act was.
Yeah, definitely. But aside from that, from some dangerous plays, now we go to another series. It's the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins, and there was some controversy there too, in terms of the tying goal by Florida's Sam Bennett. Or yeah, it was Sam Bennett, and that was because two Bruins, one defender and the goaltender, were in the crease, and if Ben hops on, maybe he could have a say in this as well. But I definitely think that was a blown call by the officials, because it looked like Bennett pushed the defender back into his teammate, the Bruins goaltender, Jeremy Swayman, I think, or was it Linus Olmark? But whoever it was, I think that was just a blown call by the officials and the Situation Room in Toronto. But what's your take on that?
My take on this is Taylor. This is the Boston Bruins being the classic Boston Bruins, and I know if Ben hops on, he's not gonna like what I'm about to say, but the Boston Bruins are this great regular season team. They have great regular seasons year in and year out, and they just can't produce in the postseason. They kind of remind me of the Dallas Cowboys, where they just have a great regular season, but they just can't produce in the playoffs. I mean, last year they had historically the best regular season in the National Hockey League, and they didn't have anything to show for it. They got bounced in the first round. They blew a 3-1 lead. And Taylor, I really think that for the Bruins, it's kind of like a case of deja vu, where it's like oh my God, it's happening all over again. And now they're down 3-1. They have obviously the better team. They barely got out of the first round. And the Florida Panthers, they're a good team, but the Boston Bruins are better. They're definitely in, like James Gonzalez mentions here in the comments, Boston is in big trouble, and I agree with him. The Bruins, they're more talented. They're well coached. They've won a cup recently. I think back in 2011 with Tim Thomas as their goalie. they're a really good team, but the problem is the Boston Bruins always have the yips in the playoffs. For some reason, they just cannot seem to put it together, and I don't know why. And I think that if they were to lose this series, Taylor, I think that Montgomery, their coach, John Montgomery, I think he's going to be gone because they're going to have to blame somebody after last year they lost bitterly against I forgot who they played. I think they played the Maple Leafs again in the first round, and they lost, and they weren't able to turn that great regular season into something special. So I know Ben's gonna have a lot to say on it, but Boston, I don't know what's up with them in the playoffs. Like they just have the yips, and it's just mind-boggling what's going on in Beantown come postseason time in hockey. And Taylor, I wanna get to this. Like I know this was very controversial, and that was in that game. I'm not a really big hockey fan, but I found out yesterday that in hockey, if you lose your replay, the opposing team automatically gets into a power play. Like that's egregious. Like that it's like the in the NBA where if you win your two challenges, you still lose a timeout. It's like how are you rewarded for losing even though you won? But in the Bruins case, they lost their challenge. Okay. If you lose a timeout, okay, I get it. That's fine. That's appropriate punishment. But to put the other team on a power play, on a 2-3 minute power play, I think it's ridiculous. Like it's like having a common foul and then putting a team in football the opposing team 1st and 10 at the losing a replay and then putting the opposing team 1st and 10 at the other team's 20-30 yard line. It doesn't make any sense. So I just think that the rules should be changed. Like if they lose a timeout, that's fair. But going to a power play just because you lose a challenge, I just think that that's way too much, and that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't punish a team badly just because they wanted replay. Like losing a timeout is fine, but for them to punish them by putting them on a power play, like I know that has happened like multiple years in the NHL, but I just think that's a rule that has to be changed for hockey to be played better at its best.
Well, Isaiah, that actually was the case in starting in 2015. For a failed challenge, you actually did lose the timeout because in hockey you only get one timeout per game, and back then, in the early days of that, you actually did lose the timeout, but they obviously changed the rule, and I honestly think it is. I mean, yeah, it's kind of controversial, but at the same time, you got to have that timeout because just to, you know, give your team some rest, especially when it's late in the third period and you're down by a goal or two, and you gotta draw up a play. But it's and of course, if you lose the challenge, not if you lose the first challenge, it's just a 2 minute penalty and a 2 minute when a 2 minute power play for the other team. A second and subsequent failed challenge is a 4 minute power play for the other team. But aside from that, we now move on to the series of today's, and I see James saying playoff hockey is the best. I can't deny that, James. It's like they say, there's nothing like playoff hockey, and with hockey being a sport unlike any other, I would have to say it is definitely worthy to watch. But now we move on to the next series, and this happened a few hours ago in the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers. The Carolina Hurricanes have staved off elimination once again. They are down 3-2, headed to Raleigh, North Carolina, but they are still one loss from elimination. So, what do you think, Isaiah? Will the Hurricanes stave off elimination one more time and send it back to MSG, or will the Rangers close it out in the next game?
This was a great game. Credit to the Hurricanes. They played amazing hockey, but New York, Taylor, is on the ropes. And I mean that both in basketball and in hockey as well. You had a chance this is why people always say, don't play with your food. Because, yes, you might think you have one game to spare, but guess what? When you give the other team momentum, that is always the most dangerous thing in sport. And so for the New York Rangers, they had a 3-1 lead. They were very comfortable. They were beating the brakes off the Carolina Hurricanes. And you let Carolina get one game, and now all of a sudden you go back to Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. You go back to Raleigh and for game 6 in a raucous environment in Carolina's home ice. That should be electric, and they're going to have the advantage. And if they win, then they have all the momentum going back to MSG for game number 7. So this is why, people in hockey always say, don't play with your food, because you don't want to give other teams and, momentum. You just don't. Like, momentum is a huge thing. And so, for the New York Rangers, sadly they weren't able to come up with a win in this game. But credit to the Hurricanes. They came in. They played very hungry. They played aggressive. They have two of the best defensemen, in all of hockey. They're really good. Their goalie's amazing. Their coaching staff is very innovative, both offensively and defensively as well. They're a team that you shouldn't count out, and the New York Rangers are learning that right now.
Yeah, definitely, and like you mentioned, the best defense core, and of course one of the defensemen, as you know, is a former San Jose Shark in Brent Burns, and he is he's won the Norris Trophy as the league's top defenseman in the past, and that was as a Shark. But he's brought that talent with him to Carolina. And of course, as for the goaltender, it's one of my former Anaheim Ducks and Frederick Anderson. And I can say, as a Ducks fan, I can say that the Ducks should really regret letting him go, because look at what he's done for Toronto and now Carolina. And I really think the Ducks should have kept him, but no, they trade him away. And I think that move has already it has proven costly already. But anyways, we now move on to the fourth semifinal series, and I have it on TV in front of me right now. It's the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. There's 2 minutes left in the first period. The Stars have a 1-0 lead on a power play goal by Wyatt Johnston, and the Stars lead that series 2-1 as well. But these two teams are definitely powerhouses in the Central Division. Colorado, if you remember, they won the Cup 2 years ago, and they did have a lot of different players, but Dallas, from what I've seen so far and what I have on my TV, is definitely playing hard. And there was a great chance right there for the Avalanche. But in any event, what's going to be the strategy here for both teams? Because with the Stars having a 1-0 lead, and obviously no team can let their foot off the gas pedal, as I can see on some side news from Intergalactic Sports and Entertainment Network, wishing Valery Nichushkin all the best. Today's news is sad and scary. Yes, he was in stage 3 now of the Player Assistance Program, which is a joint venture between the league and the Players Association, and he's going to be suspended now. But going forward for the Avalanche, what's it going to take and for the Stars also, what's it going to take for one of these teams to move on to the conference finals?
Well, let me just say this. Johnson is playing a great hockey game right now for the Dallas Stars. Wes Johnson is amazing right now. He's very, very aggressive. He's going straight to the goal and trying to score the puck. He's doing really good, and I like the aggressive attitude from Johnson. I really do. And Steele as well. I mean, Steele is playing great defense. Steele on the offensive side is, he's being aggressive as well. Both Johnson and Steele are taking a lot of shots at the goal, which is something you really want to see as a hockey fan. So they got to continue to do that. I think that for the Stars, their two best players or their three best players, Pavelski, Johnson, and Steele, they got to keep attacking. They got to keep attacking. That's what they're doing right now, and you like to see that. For the Avalanche, I mean, listen. The game is only 1-0 right now, so I'm not gonna say it. Definitely not gonna say it's over by any stretch of the imagination. But I think for the Avalanche right now, just continue to play the game. But you got to stop Johnson. You got to stop Pavelski, and you got to stop Steele as well. I think those guys, or Johnston, my bad. Johnston, you got to stop him. I mean, he is being aggressive. He's in ultra mode right now, and you got to definitely, maybe you have to double him. Maybe you got to double him. Maybe you got to put some more attention on him, or put 3 men on him. Who knows? But maybe you got to do that. I don't know, but that's what you got to do if you're the Colorado Avalanche, because you got to hold it at 1-0. Because 1-0, yes, you can overcome that deficit, but you need to win this game. So that's what I would do if I'm Colorado.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, both teams, in addition to those three guys you mentioned, in addition to Joe Pavelski, who another former San Jose Shark, by the way, and Sam Steele, who's another former Anaheim Duck. It goes beyond them, because the Stars, don't forget, they also have guys like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn and Matt Duchene, and then they even get a lot of production from a very mobile defenseman by the name of Miro Heiskanen. He can really skate, and he's scored quite a few goals this postseason as well. And as for the Avalanche, it goes beyond their big three of Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, and Cale Makar on the blue line. They've got a lot of other secret weapons as well, which is why in hockey, like you said, not just because you can't just watch the top players. It's all about the depth. They have to, keep an eye on whoever's in those soft areas, and because it's like they say, there's some secret weapons, so you gotta keep an eye on them, and it's all about the depth. You can't rely on your top players. Everyone has to chip in. So, but anyways, that's our playoff update. Now we go to our draft lottery recap, and Isaiah, your San Jose Sharks, they have won the sweepstakes to pick for the rights of selecting Macklin Celebrini, and you think this is gonna be enough to get the Sharks back into the postseason next year, or do you think they still have some time it's still going to take some time for them before they get back there?
Taylor, I think that this is a massive move for the San Jose Sharks, because when you think about the San Jose Sharks, they're a team that has been dormant the last several years. And, this is something they really needed. And when I was watching the NHL Draft Lottery last week, and I saw it went down to the final 3 picks between the Ducks, the Sharks, and the Chicago Blackhawks, I was like, oh crap, they're either going to give it to the Ducks or they're going to give it to the Blackhawks, because the thing with San Jose is what Stephen A. Smith called the Dallas Cowboys. Something can go wrong, will go wrong. Like, this is a team that's blown a 3-0 lead in the playoff series. They got Erik Karlsson in a massive trade, and they were supposed to contend for a title. They were supposed to beat Sid the Kid and the Pittsburgh Penguins back in, I think, 2017, 2015. And, they weren't able to do it. And they had a great run, right, with Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski, Tomas Hertl, Erik Karlsson, and those guys. But me and other Shark fans were just like, you know what, it's time to rebuild. And this was like a couple of years ago. We were clamoring for them to get into a rebuild, like finally get into a rebuild, because we were tired of being stuck in mediocrity where we weren't good enough to contend for a Stanley Cup, but we also weren't bad enough to contend for a top pick. And so we finally got into a rebuild. And, the last few years, like the Sharks have come close to getting the number one pick. I mean, last year we came close to getting Connor Bedard. The year before we got close as well. So I was like, the Sharks are gonna get screwed again, Taylor. I was like, that's what my reaction was like. I was like, oh crap, we're gonna get screwed again, and the San Jose Sharks are gonna lose out on a guy in Macklin Celebrini, who I think is a generational type player. He has the potential to, I think, be with the likes of Sidney Crosby and some of those others top players in hockey as well. I mean, I can honestly see him reaching the level of Wayne Gretzky. I mean, that's how good this Macklin Celebrini is. He is a tremendous forward. He's got great footwork. He is, he's got really good hands. I think he might be a little bit better than Connor Bedard was, honestly, if we're being honest. But he's a really good goal scorer. He's a guy that also is a good defender as well. So I don't see defense being an issue for him. A lot of times when like young kids come into the National Hockey League, the problem is that they're not good defenders and they get exploited there. And so I just think with Macklin Celebrini, you don't got to worry about him. So I'm so thrilled and so ecstatic that Macklin Celebrini is a Shark, because nothing goes the Sharks' way, and we finally have something good, Taylor, going the Sharks' way. And I kind of liken this to when the Spurs got Victor Wembanyama, where you need that transformational talent to transform your franchise, and we finally got that in Macklin Celebrini. Now you can build around him. You can put some veterans around him as well as some young talent. I think the Sharks also have the 10th pick in the draft as well, so they can use that, get another young player to play alongside Macklin Celebrini and have like a young combination out there. Maybe you can go out and trade for a veteran that can help Macklin as he gets to the National Hockey League. The Sharks have a lot of ways to go, but this is a great first step in the right direction. They also need to hire a head coach. That I want a head coach who has experience coaching playoff teams as well as developing a young talent. That's why I think guys like Dave Hackstall would be a good fit, former coach of the Kraken. Also, I've wanted Gerald Gallant. I think Gerald Gallant would be an outstanding fit. John Tortorella maybe. But also Dan Belisma, former coach of the Penguins, who's won a Stanley Cup. I want coaches that have experienced success, because they can build a culture that is of winning, and they can develop young players and help them grow. And that's what the Sharks need with Macklin Celebrini on board. But I mean, when we won the lottery, I was like, oh my God, I was at the airport and I was jumping up and down for joy, because I was like, man, nothing ever goes the Sharks' way. And finally something goes the Sharks' way, and the curse has been reversed, and the dark clouds have broken and the rain is dropping. So I'm definitely very, very excited for him. I can't wait to see him play. I'm thinking about getting myself a Macklin Celebrini jersey. Because I think that's how good he's going to be. If he stays healthy, this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer and one of the best to ever play in the NHL. And I think, Taylor, now what you got to do if you're the Sharks is get a good coach around him, get some good vets around him. That's why I think Joe Pavelski would be good to add this offseason. And then just help him out, add some supporting cast around him, and I think you will be good. And I do want to see the Sharks improve when it comes to their goalie situation, because I don't really like their goalie. I found him very flat-footed. I don't think he was that good last year. He gave up a lot of goals last year, and you need to have a dominant goalie if you want to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, for sure. The Sharks, the year they went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2016, Martin Jones was definitely the guy. And of course, for many years they had Evgeny Nabokov, who was who also stood on his head nearly every single night. And of course, Antti Niemi, who was kind of inconsistent over the years, and then of course you mentioned it takes a good mix of young talent and veterans to build around. So and then of course, like you mentioned, with the Sharks winning the Macklin Celebrini sweepstakes, very similar. Well, of course, the result for in basketball when the Spurs selected Wemby, because he played pretty good, but the Spurs unfortunately still finished in dead last. Um, uh, and then, of course, last year when the Blackhawks ended up picking Bedard, the results were just about the same as well. But for the Sharks, who knows what can happen? And as for coaching candidates, we got to see if they can build who they can build around, and we'll just have to find out. But anyways, we have Ben Cruz on the show now. Ben, how's it going?
Doing good, guys. It's been a hot minute since I've been able to talk hockey, and I couldn't be any more proud and excited to come on and talk some with you guys. So I hope you guys are doing well. And yeah, I'm glad to have the show back on track.
Yeah, for sure, Ben. Anyways, before you came on, Isaiah and I were discussing a little bit about the current Stanley Cup Playoff semifinal series, and we mentioned some controversy in the first series we mentioned was the Canucks and Oilers, and you saw in game last night in Game 3 the or the there were it got very feisty near the end, starting with the Nikita Zadorov cross check on the with the Nikita Zadorov cross check on Connor McDavid, and then at the end of the game, Carson Soucy another cross check on McDavid. So afterwards, the penalty, the discipline handed out was a $5,000 fine to Nikita Zadorov and a 1-game suspension for Carson Soucy. Do you think these penalties were appropriate, or what did you think about them?
Yeah, Taylor, unfortunately, I really didn't get the chance to see really most of it. I think just my overall focus has been the Bruins lately. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes playoff time, the refereeing is going to be very up and down, and I think specifically, whether specifically something's going to get called or not, it's all about specifically the consistency, and more likely than not, and I'll talk about the Bruins in a little bit, but it's all about the play on the ice. That's really the key in terms of how it's going to be specifically for the game. So if you feel like specifically that you're putting your all in, and obviously the Oilers and Canucks series is going really, really well right now. I think that the Oilers personally look like a team that has been more of an offensive tack type minded team. Vancouver, on the other hand, has not, but they've been able to kind of stick with it because of their really good goaltending. And it's been pretty surprising about the Canucks right now because Thatcher Demko's been out, and obviously he's one of the best goalies in hockey. So they've been able to kind of keep that series on track. And just watching some of that game last night, Taylor, I will say is the Oilers specifically, their power play is absolutely dynamic. I mean, when you have Connor McDavid, you have Zach Hyman, you have Leon Draisaitl, and obviously, of course, the guys in the back end like Darnell Nurse. I mean, that Oilers team specifically, you cannot, you got to stay on the box against. That's pretty much the biggest thing if you're the Canucks. But just overall, in terms of the calls and stuff like that, like I said, I don't really see much about it, and I think it's just all about consistency at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And on the note of consistency, we saw for your Bruins against the Florida Panthers, we also saw this controversial goal with Sam Bennett pushing I forgot who the defender was into. I think was it Jeremy Swayman or Linus Solmark in net, but
It
that
was
was
Swayman.
controversial. Swayman, okay, but that was controversial because Bennett looked like he shoved the defender into Swayman and then tapped the puck into the net, and then the Situation Room after review ruled it a good goal. But like you mentioned, though, the inconsistency of the officials, and sometimes the Situation Room in Toronto, like what's your take on that call? You think it should have? Do you think it should have counted, or do you think it should have? They should have disallowed it. Like, what do you think?
100% they should have disallowed it. And I mean, listen, I'm gonna be a realist. You know, regardless of the call or not, the Panthers are just a flat out better team. And I could hate them all I want. Specifically, I can dislike them all I want. But I'm also a realist at the end of the day in sports, and they're just a much better team. They're top six with Kachuk and Bennett, um, Barkov. Obviously, they just have a lot of firepower, and their forecheck obviously has been absolutely dynamic the last several years. And of course, they have very good back end play. Guys like Brendan Montour, Oliver Ekman Larson. Bobrovsky's obviously great and goal during the playoffs. So it's really tough to beat these guys. And, Brad Marchand obviously not playing yesterday was a massive blow. Of course, your captain. So you're pretty much was already a body short of production. And, in terms of the overall call specifically, Taylor, I mean, I thought it was a cross check where Bennett hit Coyle and then Bennett obviously put it in the empty net. But when you get outshot 49-18, 49-20, there's really nothing I can sit here and be like, well, that's going to be the decider of the series. I think specifically I had Panthers in 6 games. Um, but I just think specifically, like, if you're going to make that call, make it right because that was clear as day. I mean, yes, obviously unfortunately, tell you can't challenge cross checks in hockey. So obviously, from after Montgomery did that, the chances of it coming back was not good. So I think specifically after the Bruins had that 2-0 lead, I didn't literally like that first period yesterday that they had despite it. I thought that the Panthers' ozone time was still very heavy in their Bruins defensive zone. Um, yeah, I mean tomorrow night, obviously, I'm gonna have hope until it's over. But it's not looking good. I mean, especially if Marchand can't come back. I mean, he did skate today, which is obviously hopeful in a bit. But I mean, anything's possible. I mean, you look in terms of the Rangers. The Rangers are up 3-0 in their series. Everybody thought that this was going to be an absolute wrap or a gentleman sweep, and now they're essentially fighting for their lives, going to a game 6 on Thursday night. So if the Bruins just win one, and, I said earlier this morning on Twitter, I said the Bruins have the chance to do the funniest thing ever, where they essentially do the deja vu of what the Panthers did to us last year. Be up 3-1. The favorite team kind of had that case. I doubt it happens just because of this Bruins team this year, unlike last year, just doesn't have the same power and the production with their team. So, regardless of the call or not, yes, I was upset about it. I think there's a lot of Panthers fans that were very shocked about it, but they're also at the end of the day, they're like, listen, like you gotta at least move on. And the Bruins specifically took that call and a lot of their penalties to them. And one thing about playing the Panthers, guys, and I don't know how much you guys watch the Panthers, is they bait you as much as possible. And that's essentially been their play style for the last several years. The Panthers were actually on the other hand 3-4 years ago where they weren't the more physical team against a team like Tampa. And they essentially were and after games, trying to feel like the headhunters, trying to go for the guys specifically that were the hunted, right? So they're kind of now feeling like specifically how Tampa was a couple years ago. So it's all about specifically staying in your lane, staying smart. And I think specifically that with the Bruins right now, they are not playing their style of play because they're too focused on the playing that the Panthers have more likely than trying to win hockey games. And I think that's tomorrow night is just to find a way. That's all I ask for. Find a way. Don't worry about specifically what they're doing because it's like baiting specifically. And if you try to bait and take whatever they're going to take, you're going to lose the game. So, like I said, the call specifically, it sucks. It happened, but it's not the reason why specifically we're down 3-1 in the series.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, you also mentioned the Rangers and Hurricanes earlier tonight. The Hurricanes staved off elimination again, and thanks to like I think 4 third period goals by the Canes, and not to mention Igor Shesterkin was kind of not obviously wasn't on his game tonight, but what's it gonna take? Going back to Raleigh, well, you think is it gonna be the Hurricanes going to force a game 7 back at Madison Square Garden, or will the Rangers close it out? We're gonna have. There's only one way to find out, but what do you think it's gonna take for both teams to do what they intend to do.
You're asking me?
Yes, Ben, I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. It's been a really good series. I thought specifically that the Rangers were going to win tonight, just given the way that they've been playing at home a lot of this playoffs. But give credit to Carolina. They've somehow way to win a very thrilling game. In Game 5, I thought that was more of a play with pride type of game. But with a team like that, all it takes is just for them to keep going. And now and kind of went from a series that looked more bleak than ever for them into now a real series. When you're down 3-2 specifically, now kind of the crawls of the other team kind of follow a little bit. They kind of start to feel more of tight, pressured. I know specifically from my Bruins at firsthand last year when the Bruins were up 3-1. I don't think there was anybody in Boston that was very, I want to say nervous, but they just felt like there was a chance that the Florida was going to come back. And then they just kind of spiraled from there. Patrice Bergeron obviously was not playing the first 3 games last year. He comes back for Game 5. I don't know specifically how much of that would change because you feel like that'd be more an addition than subtraction. But Florida just Game 5. Marchand had a chance to win it before overtime. Bobrovsky made a huge save. Kachuk scores in overtime. There you go to Game 6, and now essentially the doubt starts to come in. But I'm just like, all right, I still have to win 2 more. I still will be okay. Game 6, they go to Florida, they lay a massive egg. Now it's all for the marbles for Game 7. And now essentially you go from a series that you feel like you're mostly comfortable in to now essentially playing with house money and fire. And Game 7 happened. The Bruins were up by a goal with a minute left for a chance to move on. They didn't capitalize. Florida had tied it up, and then they won in overtime to absolutely stun us last year. So, I mean, when you look at the Rangers per se, do not let it go 7. That's all I got to say at firsthand. They just have to find a way to play their game. I mean, Carolina's obviously a very hostile environment, but I do give credit where credit's due. They're playing with pride and house money, and I just think with Carolina's sake, they just got to keep this train rolling. They've kind of been the team that's kind of been kind of behind, and they're just kind of going and see if they can find a way to force a Game 7. And for the Rangers, it's all about specifically just finishing it off, and obviously to get the first goal. A lot of times in the playoffs, when you get the first goal of the game and you play under your terms, it usually leads to really good results. But if you don't, I mean, look at the Rangers tonight. They were up 1-0 in the first period, second period, third period. The third period essentially just unraveled. Carolina specifically give them at least 1 goal lead. I just don't feel like 1 goal against a team like that's enough. You're essentially going to have to increase that margin, especially for a goalie like Igor. I mean, obviously 1 goalie is more likely than not enough for him with the way that he's been playing the playoffs. But typically in the playoffs, you need to at least have more addition than subtraction, because you saw what happened tonight. So I think that the Rangers do close it out in 6. I mean, I personally just do. I think that they've been the better team, but just don't let Carolina win Game 6 because Game 7 happens and anything's up for the Marlins. Even if it's back at MSG, or I bet the crowd would be absolutely going explosion mode over there in New York. And obviously, living in New York right now, I mean, there's a lot of Ranger fans that are feeling the same way as me from last year, in which they had the massive lead. They're feeling like they're on top of the earth, and now it's like, oh, like now it's a series. I'm like, I don't know how to feel. So, yeah, I think Taylor and Isaiah, this is going to go to 6. But man, Game 7's when your teammate playing, it's nothing better. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you guys can hear me now, but yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. But I'm watching. I also have Dallas and Colorado on TV. It's the second
Me
period
too.
now, and it's 1-0 Dallas. Wyatt Johnston scored a shorthanded goal. Uh, Ben, what do you think about? Oh, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we got you.
Um,
All
I
right.
mean,
Can
if
you
you're
hear me
asking
now?
me about,
Yeah, my friend just called me, but anyways, Ben, what's your take on the uh
Yeah, it's been a really good series. Dallas is up 2-1 right
Can you hear
now.
me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Taylor, try to get off the stream and come back. It might be better.
Okay.
But yeah, Ben, what's your take on the Colorado Avalanche versus Dallas Stars game?
Yeah, I think this is a really good series right now. Dallas obviously is up 1-0 tonight. 16 minutes left in the second. Dallas just has a very, very good team. They were down 2-0 against Vegas last round. They found a way to claw back into that series, and they just have a lot of playmakers. I mean, Jason Robinson, Joe Pavelski, Wyatt Johnston. And then obviously that they have a lot of good defensemen. They play with a really good style of play. But Colorado, I mean, I have them specifically going to the Cup. I just think that they have a ton of firepower. I mean, when you have one of the best defensemen in hockey, and Cale McCarr, and then obviously you have Nathan McKinnon, obviously who's one of the best forwards in the game, and obviously a pretty decent coach. Uh, the only thing is specifically is Pierre Dubois obviously is a very good coach over with Dallas. So we'll have to see specifically how this game figures out. I mean, I love this series to go 6 or 7. But yeah, I have Colorado. I think going to finish off around 6. Um, but yeah, it's a really good series. I think both teams specifically deserve to be at this stage right now, and it's just a matter specifically in terms of who pulls it out.
Okay, I'm back on. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm just gonna have to go without my headphones for now. But anyways, what we were going, what Isaiah and I before you joined Ben, we mentioned the San Jose Sharks winning the draft lottery for the rights to select Macklin Celebrini, and I see Isaiah's got a shirt on him. There was one thing that you wanted to add, Isaiah. What was it?
Yeah, I know. The things that I said in the when I Ben, I don't know, you weren't here when I said this, but I know the comment section is roasting me for my comments about when I talked about the guy. But listen, I mean, he has connections to the Bay Area, right? Like his dad is a trainer for the head athletic trainer for the Golden State Warriors. And so I think he also played with the Sharks junior ice team back when he was 14 or 15. So this kid's got Bay Area roots. And so I think it was just destined for him to come to the Bay Area, come to the Sharks, and just save hockey in the Bay Area, because the Sharks have just been very dormant the last several years. They've been this franchise that's just been really awful. I know I went to one of the games. This was last year, and like half of the SAP Center was empty. So it was like I was looking at the Oakland Coliseum, but not as bad. But yeah, it was that bad. But yeah, hopefully Macklin is able to help revive this franchise, because when it's going good, everything is the Sharks, this fan base really helps this team. So and I know like the guys like Seth saying that I need to be drug tested because I said that Macklin Celebrini could be in the same category as Wayne Gretzky. I mean, listen, he's a transformational player. Like, I think he's like right now in this draft, if you look at it, this is Victor Wembanyama and then everybody else. So the fact that the Sharks are able to get him, I think it's very huge. And like I said earlier, like things never break the Sharks' way. So for it to happen, it's definitely very exciting. And I might be going to the NHL draft, by the way. I do have some tickets that I have put a hold on for that.
I have to say something with Isaiah about this comment. Yeah, don't ever say that ever again. No offense, my guy. You're essentially it's like comparing Victor Wembanyama to Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I mean, that's essentially it's for a young kid specific. Listen, I think Macklin Celebrini could be a really fun talent in the league. Obviously, being the first overall pick, you're obviously gonna have a ton of hope, ton of promise. Uh, but maybe see specifically if he goes like Connor Bedard is last year. Just to be a very good impression for the new team, and just for a team like that, that's a really good way to kind of rebuild your overall franchise. In which a way like San Jose, they've just been in kind of purgatory for a long period of time, and just it's just a way specifically, kind of like San Antonio last year, but it's just kind of with the team specifically that just needs hope. And I think specifically, if you bring like a guy like Celebrini in who I don't know how he's going to be, or if that, yes, he's the number one overall pick, but until it's on the ice specifically, in the NHL, of course, it's a massive difference than college, um, that we just don't know. But I do think specifically is that, you're going to be able to get some fans to come in and, you know, you look at specifically for a lot of these teams in hockey, fans come in specifically to watch stars, whether it's your team, whether it's not your team. I mean, for the Bruins specifically, David Pastrnak. That's obviously a lot of people like to come to Bruins games to see David Pastrnak play, or they want to go see Jeremy Swayman play in net. The Rangers, Igor Shesterkin, Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin. You know, that's a lot, at least a lot from the East Coast. And obviously, East Coast for hockey, there's a lot of good big top markets. I don't really know in terms of how it is really on the West Coast in terms of hockey, how big hockey really is. I mean, yes, obviously Los Angeles has the Kings. They of course won a couple Stanley Cups in the past, so obviously LA is a pretty good market. But when you talk about Celebrini and and Gretzky in specifically the same category, I mean that's absolutely, and I'll say it as Stephen A. says it, blasphemy. Per se, you obviously just have to kind of really hold your standards to just him compared to Connor Bedard. I'd say that's at least the start. Maybe specifically he can go to possibly young Sidney Crosby. I don't know. That's obviously kind of more of a you know, Wayne Gretzky is one of the greatest hockey players to ever live the game. This guy is up there with guys like Mario Lemieux. That's essentially kind of when you talk about transformational talent. It's obviously specifically just to be a little on the realistic side where, yes, I think specifically this guy is going to be good, right? I think when beyond this year, San Antonio, excellent phenom, right? He could be the next potentially. I'm not going to say potentially, but Tim Duncan. That's kind of obviously the overall built of him. But I think specifically the Celebrini to San Jose should be really exciting for you, Isaiah. All jokes aside, and I think specifically you should be able to enjoy this new thing ahead of them. I mean, look at Chicago. I mean, Chicago obviously, I think they're the third overall pick, but they kind of really tore it down the last couple of years. And then they got Connor Bedard, and look what happens. Obviously, the fans in a pretty big market like Chicago, very good hockey city, by the way. They call in to watch this guy play. So that's all about specifically if San Jose can get this guy to fill up seats. I think you guys will be able to have an exciting year next year.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, I saw a comment from Callan McClurg, who, as you know, he knows hockey quite well. Fact that Isaiah, yeah, he has. I mean, yeah, Gretzky is obviously one of the great, if not the greatest, player in the NHL. But I mean, but Callan, I don't know, but and then of course on that note, Ben, you were saying the Blackhawks they're actually drafting second. The Ducks got the third pick.
Right.
And
They're in the top three. I mean, essentially, kind of as I said, I don't really know the draft order that hard. In terms of the drafts, really, and obviously I do like the NHL draft, but I'm not I don't really know NHL prospects that well. I'll be frankly honest with you. I'm a little bit more better with basketball. I'm a little bit somewhat of baseball, but really basketball and football. I do a little bit better in terms of the prospects coming up. Definitely would like to do better with the hockey stuff, but a guy like Connor Bedard, I definitely was aware of him before he got drafted last year. And obviously Celebrini, he went to Boston University. I definitely remember him from his play over at the Bean Pot in Boston. So, I mean, it's not like I don't know this guy, at all. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's all about specifically the fit too. I mean, when you get specifically stars in sports, no matter where it is, you could have all of them in the world. Look at the Phoenix Suns, for instance, right? They have a big three out there this past year. They go to the playoffs, they get swept. Um, you know, it's all about specifically if you bring guys in, right? Obviously talent is massive in sports, but it's more of specifically does the talent translate to specifically whether it's the court, whether it's the field, whether it's the ice, and does the coaching fit in as well? Because you could specifically have all the talent in the world, but if you're essentially not fitting in with the team, and if you're not fitting in specifically with the coach, none of that matters. And I think we saw it specifically with that, and something specifically where the Sharks hired Dan Quinn a couple years ago. He was a former coach of the New York Rangers, and things essentially just were not good over there with him. I think it's more specifically because the Sharks just don't have a lot of premier talent on their team. No offense, Isaiah, but I just don't think specifically. I mean, Thomas Hurdle. I'm surprised specifically he's not been moved yet because this is a guy specifically that's been a
He's in
top goal
Vegas.
scorer.
He got traded to
That's
Vegas.
Oh yeah, silly me. I had a feeling he was getting moved at some point if he hasn't already. But yeah, Thomas Hurdle, right? He was just a perfect example. Guy like Joe Pavelski. Joe Pavelski was obviously with San Jose for a long period of time. He's now obviously in a better position. So they're looking at specifically right now, and as I know, obviously you had a stream off air, which I do agree with you about on something that you did mention before. And you said specifically of if you're going to blow it up right away. And I think specifically with the Sharks, they're kind of in a purgatory of an in and out type of phase. And I think specifically in sports, sometimes it's hard to accept it. Sometimes it's just like, well, I don't really want to blow this up. I don't really want to know how it feels. It's okay to blow things up. Listen, as a Patriot fan specifically, it was tough for me to fathom at time that heck, it has to be blown up. Things obviously have to be in a rebuild. It happens. It happens to teams that have had a lot of success. It's happened to a lot of teams that haven't had as much success. But it's more specifically of the fact is there a specific direction? That's the biggest key. If you have a specific direction, like the Sharks now have in place with the number one overall pick, and you get specifically the right coach, then you can specifically add more to the team. That's the biggest key. You got to at least start somewhere, and I think that's where it starts now with the Sharks.
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea, Ben, because I mean, it has to start somewhere. And of course, on the note of the coaches and on the coaching changes, yeah, you won't believe it. There have been a lot of coaches fired this season by their respective teams. So there's a ton of teams who are currently looking for a new coach. So, for example, the most recent, well, if you look at the earlier in the season when, I mean, for example, the Edmonton Oilers, they had what was his name? Jay Woodcroft as their head coach. They were in a funk. They fire him. They replace him with Chris Knobloch, and that pretty much was the turning point of their season. So, and now look at where they are in the playoffs. Same thing with all these coaching changes have pretty much, been the turning point of the team seasons for the most part, especially for Edmonton. But well, I'll start with you, Isaiah. Who would you think would make a great candidate to fill the head coaching vacancy of the San Jose Sharks?
I want O'Keefe, the former head coach of the Maple Leafs. I thought that he got unfairly fired by the Maple Leafs. They made the playoffs. He did a great job of setting a culture there and developing young players. They just couldn't get it done. I mean, listen, they took Boston to a game 7. Boston nearly blew another 3-1 lead. They took them to a game 7, and it's game 7. You never know what's going to happen in a game 7. Like, game 7s are a flip of a coin. So I thought he got unfairly fired there. Yeah, it sucks that they lost that game, but I thought they really had a good year, and I think O'Keefe would be really good for the Sharks. He could develop Macklin Celebrini and other young talent they bring in there. But I just think for the Sharks, it's not just that you need the young talent, but also you got to have a good mix of veterans, right? Like, I think that having Celebrini there is great, but you also got the 10th overall pick in the draft as well. So you're going to get two young studs, but you also got to have some vets to help them learn and adapt and get into the National Hockey League. So I think O'Keefe would be a good fit. I think that I personally want Gerald Gallant. I think that he would be an amazing choice. Former head coach of the Rangers. He's got that championship experience. And then some other candidates. I want to wait and see. I want to wait and see what happens because I think I could see some other coaches getting fired. If they have some bad performances that they could bring in. I just think what the Sharks need is you need a coach that has playoff success experience to help build a winning culture. I mean, they fired Bob Bogner and he was not good with the Florida Panthers or the San Jose. And then they hired Quinn, and I mean he was okay. I mean he was decent as a player development coach. He was head coach of the Rangers, but they didn't really have success there, and then he didn't have success in San Jose. So I think they need a coach that has a long track record of success in San Jose. So that's why I would take like O'Keefe or maybe even like a Gerald Gallant. I think he would be good. And I know this might be a very a name Sharks fans don't want to hear this, but how about Todd McClellan coming back to San Jose? Because when he was there, the Sharks were always winning. So he definitely knows a lot about winning. And remember, when he went to the Oilers, they had the number one pick and they drafted Connor McDavid, and he did a great job of assimilating Connor McDavid to the National Hockey League. And that's what I think Celebrini needs when he comes to the NHL.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of great candidates out there. And then, of course, I think one name we didn't, but yeah. Anyways, Ben, I'll go to you. Worst case scenario, if Jim Montgomery does get fired by the Bruins, who would you see replacing him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to kind of go into that specific state of mind right now, personally. I mean, I'm hopeful that they can extend their season at least for another day until Friday for Game 6. But if he does, so my overall thinking right now is I think he's going to stay in at least another year, and hopefully Don Sweeney can add more to that top. Specifically, that he was able to overcome that 3-1 blown series lead. I think if the Bruins blow that 3-1 series lead, with the way that last year went, I think he would have gotten fired on the spot after Game 7. But he was able to stay alive at least for another round. And, I mean, listen, theoretically speaking, more likely than not, this Florida Panthers team is just flat out better than us. It happens. It's going to happen. Was there some sketchy shit all along? Of course. But they're the better team regardless of them not. I mean, they've just been the better team. Paul Maurice obviously is a very good coach too. He's just had a lot of good success wherever he's been, whether it's just been over right now with the Panthers and of course with Winnipeg. But say he does get fired. I don't know specifically if this guy would be up there. Mike Sullivan from Pittsburgh. I'd be curious to see that if he got moved on because his daughter is actually dates, or no, she's not dating anymore. Married Charlie McAvoy. As now Dallas has a 3-0 series. I was gonna say series lead specifically tonight against Colorado. So they look like they are total control and trying to go up 3-1 in their series. But I would like Mike Sullivan. I think specifically he's always done a really good job keeping specifically cores around, of course. He did what he could specifically to get the Penguins to make the playoffs this year and an overall team that had no business of making it. They obviously didn't make it, but they were really close to. So, yeah, Sullivan could be an interesting one. I don't know. I mean, they might go in-house. I mean, I don't know how Providence specifically feels like about theirs. I don't really know in terms of a lot of these other guys. I mean, it's Marty St. Louis from Montreal. I think that they probably want to go more veteran. John Tortorella with Philadelphia. I don't think that he won't goes anywhere. I mean, obviously Bruce Cassidy would be my love for him to come back, but that's not going to happen. Obviously Vegas has him probably going to be locked up long term. It's a really good fit over there with him too. So, I mean, I'm just looking right now. Taylor, I think specifically they keep Monty at least for another year. They kind of ride it out and then see how they evaluate next year. I think it's more of Don Sweeney's job could be on the line um, after this season too, if he does not make any moves. The Bruins are in decent cap space. In terms of cap right now, their cap space. The Bruins are okay right now. And I'll kind of preview a little bit of their offseason currently right now. I mean, Linus Ullmark currently has 2 years under control right now, so there is potentially where Jeremy Swayman's really kind of taking that number one spot in the playoffs right now. But obviously, Omar can be a number one on many different teams, including San Jose. He could be a perfect fit over there for the Sharks. As Colorado comes back, sorry, as I'm talking, I saw we have 2 goals essentially turning when we're talking, so not yet, just yet. But yeah, I just think specifically Monty sticks around, like I said, and you know, like I said, I don't want this season to be over. I'd be really sad for Bruins hockey to be done tomorrow night. But if it happens, it happens. And then obviously, kind of looking on the offseason, I do have a lot of hope with this team because, like I said, there's a lot of really good free agents out there. Sam Reinhart from Florida is obviously available. Even though I think the Florida's going to keep him around, they have Taro Taravainen, Patrick Kane. Isaiah hopefully know who Patrick Kane is. He's a free agent this offseason. So, I mean, there's a ton of guys that are out there, and I think specifically that the Bruins just have to add more. I think that's kind of more of their philosophy than to fire Jim Montgomery.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, for all those all those coaches. In fact, what Isaiah mentioned previously, a coach who has had some success in the playoffs. I think he was. I forgot who he coached this year, but Peter DeBoer. He was the reason why the Sharks went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2016, ultimately losing in 6 games to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But yeah,
one more other guy I was going to mention. I'm sorry, and maybe that Isaiah might take him. Craig Berube from the St. Louis Blues. This guy just won a couple years ago in 2019 against the Bruins. Obviously he got fired mid part of the season last year with the Blues. I would take a chance on him if you're the Bruins. I think specifically, he's a veteran type of coach. He plays the right way. And if it happens, I don't think it's going to happen specifically, but that was just another name that I had crossed my mind. Sorry, Taylor, keep going.
Okay, well, and then don't forget, Ben, Craig Berube's route to the Stanley Cup included a Western Conference Final Series win over the San Jose Sharks. So, but anyways, those are some good candidates for potential coaches for new teams. Now we'll get to our final segment. It's going to be our favorite team update. I'll start with my Anaheim Ducks. This is the 5th let me think. 19, 20, 21, 22. This is the 6th consecutive season in which they have missed the playoffs. And they did have a promising start. Like I said, Greg Cronin as the new head coach to piggyback on that. He did a great job at the start, and I've also gone to some team practices, but and I've seen those practices were pretty useful. For example, one drill they did was where a defender drops his stick and learns how to defend without hitting his stick, because obviously when you don't have your stick, it's critical on defense because you can use your body to try and bounce them off the puck until you can retrieve your stick or go to the bench and get a new one. But unfortunately, they did have a promising start in early October, or from October into November, but late November and for the rest of the season, the wheels fell off. And so, but aside from that, maybe the Ducks could, I see some big names that general manager Pat Verbeek would be targeting come July 1st. So, Isaiah, what's your take on the San Jose Sharks?
Well, I mean, like I didn't really watch a lot of Sharks games this year because they flat out sucked. They had the worst record by far in the NHL. I went to one game and literally, like I said earlier, the SAP Center, because I worked at the airport next to the SAP Center. The SAP Center was like half empty most of the time. The Shark Tank, as they called it. So, it was bad. I mean, a lot of the players that you knew from the old days, they're all shipped off or have retired. The coaching staff seems to get blown out the door every single couple of years. So for the Sharks, it's time to get back to like just being a real organization. I mean, yeah, having the number one draft pick helps, and getting a transformational talent like Macklin Celebrini definitely helps. And Ben, like I was telling Taylor, like I was so shocked because I thought for sure the Sharks they were going to give it to either Chicago and have Celebrini paired with Connor Bedard, which would have been an electrifying combination if you had those two together. Or they would give it to the Ducks because knowing the Sharks' track record, whenever whenever something happens and they're either supposed to have something good happen to them, like always the bad stuff always happens to the Sharks. So for them to get the number one pick was definitely very thrilling. But I heard that they interviewed Ryan Warsofsky, who was an assistant coach last year. I just think I think the Sharks are better off going with a veteran coach that can shape the culture. Because you really have to nail this hire because with Celebrini coming in and then the other guy with the 10th overall pick, you definitely need to nail this and start building the organization in the right direction. So, yeah, it's great that we have the number one pick. Hopefully, the Sharks can get some veterans to help. And then maybe they can be like the A's, like not as bad as the previous year. Just take some baby steps and develop the young talent, and see where it's going. But I heard that the Celebrini pick is actually impacting ticket sales a lot. I mean, I think I read somewhere today that the Sharks have already sold, I think like 30% more season tickets than they did last year. So the Shark Tank will definitely be filled a little bit more, that's for sure, instead of it being just half empty. So yeah, I mean, I just hope the Sharks just get, with the young talent, get some vets that can help out, and then get a veteran coach to help them out.
Good idea. And then finally, Ben, we'll wrap it all up with your take on the Boston Bruins. Obviously, they're the only out of our three teams. Your team is the only one who is in the playoffs. So what can you say that you think obviously they have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, but do you think they will win the cup, or what's your take on the Bruins so far?
Yeah, in terms of regular season, Bruins obviously pretty solid. I mean, of course, they moved on from two of their main pieces last year in the offseason, Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci. I mean, obviously that's a massive part to the core that they've had for so long. And of course, they're kind of riding with pretty much everybody that's younger outside of guys like Brad Marchand. Of course, they have kept David Pastrnak long term, which is of course massive. But they obviously they got to the first round against Toronto, who I thought specifically was the better matchup between them and Tampa Bay. Tampa was able to get their asses pummeled against Florida in the first round. However, unfortunately, we're now the victim of that. So it doesn't feel great, but I think specifically that this team's ceiling was at least like a first round, because this is a bridge year type of team. I think a lot of people don't realize, specifically with the Bruins, that this is more of a bridge gap team more than a championship caliber of team. They're not, I don't think, on their level of like Florida, even the Rangers, even though despite the Rangers are only now up 3-2. Dallas. They're not at that level just yet. I think that they can compete with them, but I don't think that they're at a level where they just don't have the toughness and physicality. And you're just seeing that specifically in this series against Florida, where they're just getting manhandled left and right. I mean, yes, obviously the call yesterday on Sam Bennett, it sucks. But it sucks, just the way it happened. But, they have one more chance and, just have to find a way to win tomorrow and then go back to Boston to game 6, feed off your home crowd, and then if you find a way to pull that off, then you have a shot. I think at this point, a game 7 is a win for me, given the stakes of where this team is right now. So, I mean, it's basically just do or die from the rest of the season on out. It's all about specifically staying on that hill until the hill essentially does not follow, or the fat lady sings, as they say. When there's essentially a lead in sports, especially in the playoff, because nothing's guaranteed to you. You have to earn it. And I think for the Bruins, Boston's been known for crazy comebacks, in the past, 04 ALCS, Super Bowl 28-3. Just saying. So I'm going to still believe in them. I'm going to obviously ride it till the wheels fall off. I doubt, obviously, that they're going to win, this series by any means, but I hope that they compete. I really do. I hope that at least that they're going to lose this series, go down with the fight, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I think overall, they've had a really fun season. I really like this team a lot. I think that they're going to be really fun for years to come, but it's all about specifically if they want to be a championship type team. To really answer your question, if they're going to win a cup or not, I don't think they have absolutely any chance. I mean, of course, crazy things have happened, but yeah, they don't have a chance to cup. So I think specifically just focus on tomorrow, see what happens. I'm going to be mad. I'm not going to really even be mad if they lose tomorrow, because it's more of a unexpected than not. So it's going to be more sad, and if anything, tomorrow if we come short. But I do hope that we fight, and we'll see what happens.
All right. So those are good takes. Obviously the future's bright for my Ducks and Isaiah's Sharks. And of course your Bruins are yeah, it's obviously do or die, but anyways, there's nothing else to say except for our final thoughts to wrap up the show. Isaiah, I'll start with you. What's your final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts is it was a great show. It was great to do face off for like the first time in a while. So great to bring the show back. I'm hoping we can maybe do like a show before the Stanley Cup Finals, which and preview that. That should be very exciting. But yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. Summer. I know basketball. We got the playoffs. Ben, congratulations to your Celtics on taking a 3-1 lead. Good luck to your Bruins tomorrow. Hopefully, you guys are able to come back in that one. But I'm just I'm just kind of glad that the Sharks got the #1 pick, because I was literally like after work, I was just sitting there at the airport, and I was just kind of like I had nothing to watch, so I turned on the NHL draft, and then all of a sudden I was like, what? The Sharks, they have the highest chance to get the #1 pick, which I'm not surprised about because they had the worst record. And they actually got it, which was very surprising. So thank God they got it, and can't wait to see what happens. Like I said, I might be going to the NHL draft in June in the Sphere. I'm trying to get those days off, but yeah, definitely should be fun. And I might end up doing like a little video from the draft if I do in fact go. So if I do bump into Macklin Celebrini or someone else, maybe we can score an interview. I don't know, but we shall see. But yeah, great show tonight, and I'm looking forward to a great, exciting playoffs the rest of the way. And it's been very exciting already.
Okay, and finally, I'll end with you, Ben.
Yeah, good show. It's glad that I'm back on. Hockey playoffs, I think, are one of the best ever in sports. I mean, they just obviously just bring so much to the table, and I'd be definitely open to doing like a watch party for this show, especially when it comes to the cup. If there's specifically a team that's playing for a chance to win it on that specific night, maybe we just do an emergency type of show and we just essentially watch and analyze. I think that'd be a great way to kind of get this show to definitely really enjoy it, because I think really overall with this network, we don't talk a lot of hockey, and I think that we deserve it specifically for the people that love to talk hockey. So it's great that obviously we got the chance to do this tonight, and excited obviously for when the next chance would be. At least for my show coming up on Kicking with Cruz. We'll definitely probably have a show probably early on this week at some point. Not sure when. And of course, to tune in for everything else on the network. So, thanks again, Taylor, for having this show back on for tonight, and can't wait for when next to come.
Yep, there's nothing like playoff hockey. So, anyways, that'll do it for us. For Ben Cruz and Isaiah Leung, this is Taylor Ogata saying good night and have a good one.
Strome sauces the Zegras between the legs. Oh my goodness, he's done it again. A big hit after powering down the wall with McCabe. Barry stepped over. He's got the puck posted on net. Another big hit. For Suzuki across the what a stop by Ryder. Oh my!
Kid's got some marvelous hands.
The Cup's gonna stay in Vegas, and for the first time, the Golden Knights are Stanley Cup champions.
Okay, Isaiah. I guess yeah, I'll let you know when the next face-off will be.
Oh, okay. Sounds good, man. Great show tonight.
Yeah,